A long range update for the next 10 to 14 days or so. What the pattern is, what I think we're going to be seeing the cold that everyone's been talking about, which will likely be the coldest air of the season. First, I want to go back. You might be confused why I'm doing this. This is the run from the week ago, but it's to show you the Pacific jet stream, and this Pacific jet stream has been roaring really all of early November, and that's due to this marine heat wave we have going on. The strong negative PDO, strongest negative PDO ever on record, actually, which I'll talk about later. And it's weakening. It's weakened quite a bit. That's good news, but it's not good enough. Anyway, you can see the Pacific jet stream clearly very strong, and it continued to be very strong really in the middle of November, but eventually it starts to weaken, and that's something that I think it is going to be key. When the Pacific jet stream is very strong, it often injects a lot of mal there. You can see for the first week of the run, really, it was super strong, and then after the 16th, it starts to weaken. We get a blocking high here, but it's starting to weaken a little bit. You can see it's still strong, but starting to weaken. That's, I think, is going to open the door up for more cold air opportunities in the east, if you ask me. I think that when the Pacific jet stream is stronger, it's obvious. When the Pacific jet stream is stronger, it injects mild air into the east. So it's weaker. It's not injecting as much mild air. So I think the weakening of that Pacific jet was always going to open up some opportunities for cold. So now if we go to the one now, like our jet stream, it's still strong, but it weakens quite a bit, and it weakens in time for that cold air intrusion that everyone's been talking about. You can see this very strong jet stream going up the east coast, and that could produce a storm. Models have been showing it producing a storm. It won't make snow unless you're in the mountains, of course, then you could have snow, but that's a very strong jet. But mainly when we focus on the Pacific jet, the Pacific jet is not too strong, and that's something I'm going to be watching, especially with a strong negative PDO. So we're going to have to make the most of these weak periods of the Pacific jet, because the Pacific jet is probably going to be strong most of the winter. So that's a jet stream. In terms of the heights, this is the heights right now. We're starting to see high pressure set up over Greenland, but for the most part, we have this negative PNA setup. We have a negative APO, negative PNA, ridge in between Alaska and Siberia, trough in the west, ridge in the east. Pretty normal negative PNA pattern, I would say, and then that really continues. We start to get this blocking high pressure development. That's going to be our precursor around the 16th, and people have been talking about mid-November flip to cold. It's starting to look like that might come true. The back half of November might be colder than normal. It depends how things shake out, but for many people, especially I think the southeast, might be colder than normal, but we'll have to see in the central states too. But for now, we have, even though we have favorable EPO, favorable NAO, we still have trough in the west, we still have ridge in the east. So it's not quite the sort of cooldown you would expect with that blocking high, but that negative PNA is still continuing. This is a negative PNA, it's high pressure in between Alaska and Siberia. Trough in the west, ridge in the east. That really continues until we finally break the pattern on the 20th, and this is the time frame that people have been talking about. We break the pattern in the 20th, and we get quite a bit of cold air to go into the east. That's something that has been shown on many models for a while now, really. And it's because of that blocking high pressure. If I go back here, you can see high pressure blocking high over Greenland. That often forces that cold air southward. You have this ridge out in western Canada, also forces cold air southward. So I'm honestly not surprised, given this. If you told me there's going to be no cold air outbreak in these, I'd be very surprised. So all the setups, all the heights, very conducive for cold in the east. And it's been showing this. I definitely believe that we're going to have some cold air outbreak in the east. And this looks like another one, if you ask me, to end November and start December with this ridge building in western Canada. We only have we have lower pressure starting to build on Greenland, but we already have this blob of cold air moving towards the eastern U.S. And I wouldn't make bets on it, but I would bet if this model went out any further, which I'm glad it doesn't. I'll show you that in a second. But I would expect some sort of a cold air outbreak in the east. So I do believe there's going to be a cold air outbreak. I know that GFS often gets clowned, but literally every other model is showing it, and all the oscillations point to it. There's no reason not to believe it at this point. If you ask me, I would. It's probably going to end up being weaker than we think, just based on past history. But there probably will be some sort of a cold air outbreak. Now actually, no, I want to do the anomalies first. So the temperature anomalies. So temperature anomalies. We have a cold front sweeping through the northeast. It's going to be freezing temperatures, hard freezes for some. First hard freeze for many people. Probably interior locations have already seen it. Probably cooler out west, warmer in the central states. And we get a mostly warm period in the central and eastern U.S. Mostly cool out west, colder than normal out west. As long as the anomalies are pretty stark. 12 to 20 degrees below average. And that's going to be because of that negative PNA. The southwest is going to be the most below average, but eventually that will flip. We start to see that cold air starting to try to make its way into the central states, meaning the south central states. Texas will be Texas, northern New Mexico, Oklahoma, those kind of states. And then we start to get that cold to move eastward. It's going to be mostly in the southeast. And to start off anyway, and then eventually we get our cold air outbreak in the east. But I think the northeast will, for the most part, be spared from these extreme cold air outbreaks in terms of anomaly-wise. I think that's going to be the southeast and the mid-Atlantic that are more affected than the northeast, if you ask me at this point. And then we have another cold air outbreak in the central states, and this looks like it's primed to move eastward with that warmth. The warmth isn't really starting to build, but on the heights it is anyway, so you can see on these heights, the warmth is trying to build out west, and that's conducive for another cold air outbreak in the east. Anyway, the precipitation, there's no crazy snow, so don't worry. I wouldn't show precipitation. I still would, but anyway. We have this 1,008 millibar low. It curves upward. This is the name of the game for La Nina, a storm track that looks something like, I shouldn't dwell on that, but that looked something like this, and that's something that's very, very, very conducive for La Nina. Hold on, I didn't want all of that. That was for something else. That was for my winter forecast. But yeah, something that's very conducive for La Nina is a Great Lake storm track, and that's a problem. I'll explain it in my winter forecast. But get this 1,000 something millibar low that goes to the mid-Atlantic, brings much needed rain. Then we have this low forming out of Texas, curves northward, rain and snow. This hurricane, ignore it. I mean, I'm not going to talk about it so long, but yeah, there's not really much else. I'm not even going to talk about that. So, yeah. Oh, and then we get this. Crazy.